1,000 feet. Use the right 2 lanes to keep right.
Hey friends, it is Friday, Future Friday, September 10, 2021. Thanks so much for being on Prepare to Go There. This is your invitation to stay focused on your future and to figure out how to lead yourself there practically, tactically, day by day. It's a daily journey that we're all on, so why not we do it together? My name is Peter, and it has been so much fun going on this coaching journey with you now 60 times in a row. That is incredible. And I'm just so appreciative that there are so many future friends and leaders who want to work on themselves so that way they can add more value to others. So welcome back to the Future Frontier. This is where we're putting in the work with that lifestyle of preparation. You know, the alternative is a lifestyle of procrastination, and that won't take you where you want to go. So I wanted to just hit some opening comments and then bring on literally one of my best friends in the entire world. I'm so excited that he gets to join the conversation today. But, you know, it's my thesis that self-leadership matters. Self-leadership is the difference between saying that you have a plan and then showing people that it's actually working. I've learned from experience and observation that most people don't know how to lead others into a better future until they first learn how to lead themselves there first. And that's why I'm inviting friends and leaders alike to put this into action, to focus practically on their future so that way they can lead themselves there tactically, day by day by day. If this resonates with you, I'm going to be talking a little bit more at the end about our email community. I'm going to be sending out a weekly email roundup, and it's all of the coaching conversations so you can keep up with what we're talking about. But I want to get into my guest, Future Friday guest. Chris Needham is one of my best friends. We're going to talk a little bit more about it in person, but he is a pastor at an amazing Christian church here in the Houston area. And I've just had the privilege to see him, just be awesome in multiple seasons of life. And he's definitely shaped me for the better. So I'm going to bring him on so you don't have to just see his face here. But Chris, welcome to Prepare to Go There.
Hey, what's going on, Peter? Excited to be a part of this. Absolutely.
So you've actually kind of been a part of Prepare to Go There from start to finish. You were a part of the Genesis, kind of all those conversations behind the scenes. So what is it like to kind of see this coaching journey take shape like this?
Yeah, man, it's been fun. It's been a living, breathing example of everything you say and you teach. I've got to watch it behind the scenes. And I've just been inspired. You teach productivity, but you are a productive person. You teach intentionality, but you're incredibly intentional. So it's been fun. You're part of the inspiration, you yourself, not just the content you put out.
Amazing. Thanks. So we're going to be talking about disruption, and it's kind of a scary idea because a lot of people don't like change. In fact, I normally come out with a quote for each time. And so I have a quote that I thought you might like. I pulled out a Elon Musk quote because I know you like
he's inspiring too, man.
What he's doing. But he said, and I thought this kind of tees us up for disruption. He said, some people don't like change, but you gotta embrace it because the alternative is disaster. So
totally.
It's not something that we can, really avoid. So we might as well get good at it. We might as well 100%. Get good at change and disruption and actually leverage it for the better. And so
it's a life skill.
Absolutely. This is our opportunity to kind of talk with no content, no, main talking points, just kind of us dialoguing back and forth, which is so cool. But before that, why don't you introduce yourself? I would love for people to know a little bit more about you and whatever you want to say as kind of opening remarks, and then we'll just dive in.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, my name's Chris Needham. I'm my wife of 13 years is Stephanie Needham. And we've got a little boy, Noah. He's about to turn 3. So we did about 10 years of exciting, awesome, basically the majority of our 20s. We were married without a child and just had such a fun time. But there you go. I love the photo. That was last year. The mask is a bit of a giveaway. They wanted you to hike with masks on there in Colorado. So you got it. It's like a necklace. Anyway, glad that's over. But we had such a good time. And so Noah's about to turn 3. And so we went through about 10 years of just exciting married life without a child. Now we get to experience a massive disruption. Absolutely. Self-imposed, wonderful disruption. Really shook everything up. And, you get real good at doing life when you keep the same family home situation for 10 years. And then everything gets challenged when it gets changed up that big. But anyway, we both get the pleasure of working at our church here. It's in North Houston Dwelling Place Church. And we both serve in administrative and local ways. We help with the children's ministry, with just general administration, Bible teaching, things of that nature. But also we have an awesome, exciting privilege at that church. We help oversee a network of relationships with sister churches around the world. And so we get to work with them and see how different church expressions go on around the world in different ways. And we lead team trips and we do Zoom meetings and, kind of all the above. And then once a year, we bring as many of our international friends and family here to Houston. And so we've got a plan all year long in a lot of different contexts. And our schedule, something you and I talk about a lot is we talk about these type of topics. Preparing to go where and there and everywhere is, we have a very irregular schedule. And so that's a challenge we always face. And we benefit from all our great conversations you and I get to have. So,
yeah, I love it. And I literally could brag about you and Stephanie and what y'all do on and on. But just for the sake of time, basically, I'm so thankful you're on because you really are leading at the cutting edge of disruption. I mean, your life is disruptive and the work you do involves a lot of disruption here, there, and everywhere. I don't know if you have time later to tell any of your horror stories with your international travel, because I mean, you can make a plan all you want, but you still have to be open to those crazy contingencies and all of the ups and downs that come with international travel, which is kind of cool. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say a bite-sized one. About 4 weeks ago, we sent our first big international trip since the COVID lockdowns. And one of our key team members tested positive for COVID, got sick in Eastern Europe and was not allowed to return home. And we had to navigate that one. Of course, he's home safe now. Everything went fine. But, it's a whole new world out there.
It is, man. So I would love just to hear the way Chris Needham approaches disruption. Are you generally afraid of it? Are you cool with it? Have you figured out ways to leverage it? How does this idea of being proactive, not reactive, really play into your own approach to self-leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I'm honest, I think I'm pretty okay with disruption, probably just because I'm a diehard optimist. I think that's just something that, by the grace of God, just like you hand me lemons, I'll find a way to make lemonade. So when disruption happens, I'm looking for the angle. I'm looking for the advantage. I'm looking for the silver lining. I'm looking for the leverage. And so that helps. And, maybe just a tad bit harder, of course, when it comes to, what you've been talking about more this week, disruption, choosing to disrupt your own life and schedules. That one I think that's a challenge for me, like it is anybody else. I usually the thought is exciting and doing it is really, really hard. And, I think I'm the same as everybody else in that regard. The thought necessarily, maybe some people don't want to change. I like the thought of changing for the better. But it's hard to change a habit. That's a tough talent.
Yeah, that's so good. I love how you talked about being optimistic. That's one of the ways you said you're looking for the leverage, looking for that silver lining to lean forward, and
Absolutely.
then balancing thought versus doing. And for me, that's why I have to disrupt myself, because I can get into mental ruts where I'm just assuming that all of my routines are working, or I'm assuming that all my systems are working, and that may not be the case. And so I have to be willing to counter any self-deception with self-disruption and make sure that I'm actually moving forward.
Totally.
So where do you want to take the disruption?
Well, first thing place I want to take it. We just got back from a wonderful vacation in Oregon. And I was inspired by the pioneering that goes on out there. We were with some wonderful friends that had like a homestead. These guys were pioneering. And so I have my new, it's not yours literally says pioneer, but I have my hat here with my axes. And so I wanted to join the party. I got my pioneer hat. So now we match. And, now I feel like I'm part of the party.
Definitely. It's so good.
Absolutely. Well, let me say this too. It's funny. I've been in this world with you because I had a family member to come stay at our home recently who's going through a disruption in life. And just the other day, they were sitting at our home and talking, and they stayed with us just for a couple days. But they looked at me and they were just like, I don't do change well. I don't do change. I'm not good with change. And I think that's pretty normal. And then when you launched your blog earlier this week, about intentional disruption. And I think you said that in the blog about, change is hard. People don't like change, but it's necessary. It's a part of life. And then on top of that, I'm disrupting my schedule, my habits. About a week ago, I declared war on the bad habits I've got into. Maybe that's strong sounding, but just kind of my evening times. What happened is I used to be a night owl, so I'd get everything done in the evenings. Then I got real intentional. I disrupted my morning habits, and then I shifted all of my productive and things of value to my mornings. And then without realizing it, I let the evenings slip. And it was like, oh, evenings is rest time. But rest time can way too easily become, okay, now I'm just meaningless time, just entertainment, scrolling the phone, staying up too late, these sort of things. And so at some point I caught myself, and like you said, you almost have to see yourself with new eyes. And about a week ago, I'm like, you know what? No, it's time. I think I need to have valuable mornings and nights, And so I'm actively in that process, and I'm feeling it. And I've had some nights I stuck with the plan, and some nights I didn't. And so I'm right there in it. I'm immersed in this. So yeah.
That's so good. And I think practicing disruption keeps you agile and helps you to think about life less fragile. Whenever you're so absorbed with a certain way of doing things, or you're so absorbed with, your structure in life and everything has to go a certain way, your life starts feeling more fragile when that that semblance of perfection is threatened. And one thing that I really appreciate and admire about you and your wife is, Stephanie, is y'all are so open to the disruption. You welcome it, and you almost like thrive off of it, because it's like a new friendship to make, or it's a new adventure to take, or it's a new opportunity to find. And how do y'all like process so many rapid disruptions with the work that you do without like feeling, for lack of a better phrase, totally out of control?
It's a great question. Part of the answer is we do feel totally out of control sometimes, and it's not all perfect and wonderful. But yeah, I think part of it is you just have to stop and pause and breathe. You got to pace yourself. And so, something that's just so beneficial to us is inspired by the Bible and the concept of the Sabbath, trying to take a day a week to contemplate, to rest, to reflect. And, everything can get kind of out of control and wild and crazy. But, just like to live, you have to breathe in, you have to breathe out. You got to, if you're going on a long run, you got to pace yourself. And so at some point you got to stop and you got to reflect, how am I doing? We going too fast here? Do I need to slow down? What have I let slip? And the key is just not to let yourself go too far without those reflective moments. I think that's probably the main thing. And as a married couple, we obviously do that together, and we do spend a lot of time together. So I think it is a benefit that we naturally get to have those conversations. We share a car for going to work and back, and that just creates just a wonderful benefit. So you leverage what's working for you. We've been able to work that one car thing, and it's just been, sometimes we've considered, we could get two cars, but it's like, but all of those valuable time we have in the car, we're going to lose that, right? And I know not everybody can do that, but you work with what you have, and you leverage everything to your benefit. And so I think, as a married couple, it's a lot of communication, and just even as an individual, pausing and reflecting and not going too long without doing that. And so as things start slipping, you catch them quick before they get too far gone.
That is so good. I want to underscore that just for all of us that are listening. One of the keys to leveraging disruption as a lifestyle is much, much easier than you think. And it's to rest. It's to stop. It's to slow down. You'll actually find disruption in the rest and in the open space, because you'll be able to zoom out. You'll see what's working, what's not working. You'll kind of more naturally course correct. And so it doesn't have to feel so abrasive. It doesn't have to feel so harsh. But if you'll just, for many of us, just slowing down is a change. And so that might be the right kind of disruption that we need.
Totally. I think that's something, Peter, I've just been inspired by as I've, been thinking about this concept of disruption along with you this week, is just there's disruptions from within, and there's external disruptions. There's the stuff that you can control, and there's the stuff you can't control. And as you've been talking about, we have to have this skill of learning to look at ourselves and make the choice to disrupt the norm or disrupt something that's not thriving. But then there's also these times where the disruptions, they come from the outside. COVID brought a big disruption for most people. I don't know anybody who didn't get disrupted by 2020, and so I think something that has to be said there is this concept of flexibility. And I think that was maybe the most stimulating thing on my mind coming to this today to talk about, or just to comment on, is the internal choice to make a disruption that takes intentionality. You got to be intentional to catch it and do it. The stuff from the outside, that is not really too much intentionality about it. What you need for that is flexibility.
Yeah.
And in reality, in life, we're going to face disruptions from without and from within. And so we need to have intentionality that's mixed with a good dose of flexibility.
Yeah.
Because you can have all the intentionality in the world, and you can have the perfect plans, and then things often will not go your way. They're not going to go according to the plan, and that's out of your hands. That's from the outside. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, you could be the most flexible person in the world, and you're just really good. Like, no outside disruption is going to get you. We watched that Shang-Chi movie. They do the Tai Chi, and, they throw the punch, and you're just like, okay, what's up? Looks like they're doing a dance. They're just so flowy, right? But that's great. But if you're not intentional, you're just dodging and missing, and you have no idea where you're headed. So there's this kind of tension, and there's this concept of being intentional, but staying flexible about it. So you're 2020, you own a cupcake shop, and you've been growing your skills as a business owner, and let's say you're really good at your counters, your charisma, You know, you're known for like, you're the cupcake shop. You pop in, you got the best staff, the friendliest environment. They throw in an extra cupcake, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, boom, your cupcake shop gets closed. Okay. By someone whose decision you may or may not agree with outside of your hands. Well, suddenly, what did all these places do? They had to figure out how to survive through delivery. Okay, you didn't realize you were in the delivery service.
Come on.
But now you're a delivery company. You're a cupcake delivery company if you want to survive, you know? And so I don't really know too much about the food industry. So if anybody out there is in the food industry, forgive my analogy. Maybe this isn't entirely right, but all of a sudden, okay, your personality skills, you're gonna have to somehow be flexible and translate those to maybe online. You're gonna have to hustle social media. You're gonna have to get yourself out there. Right. But all those business skills, those core fundamental business principles you had learned and you applied them to a face-to-face cupcake experience, you got to translate them. So it's good that you were intentional and you were growing in your business skills, but now you got to put them in a context that you just didn't expect. You know, in my world, the church world, it was all about live stream. Churches had to start surviving. Every church I know of that was not live streaming began live streaming, and every church that was already live streaming, they got better at live streaming. And you know, I think that's just a really good example of that intentional but flexible concept. You know, there's an old adage, for a friend of mine shares, it's blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be broken. You know, and so let's be as intentional as we can possibly be, but part of that intentionality is to be intentionally flexible so that we're not broken, you know, when the disruptions come from outside of our control.
That's so good, man. And one thing I really have noticed from your team is that y'all have a value for both of those things. And
totally.
It's in your communication, it's in your rhythms, it's what you celebrate, you know, as a team.
Mm-hmm.
And so when the disruption happens next, like, y'all had to innovate and y'all really like expanded your campus when everyone else was shrinking and downsizing and kind of caving in. Y'all were actually expanding because y'all knew how to be flexible and you knew how to stay on mission, and you were doing the same thing but in a new context, and that became the leverage to, you know, double, to do more, to help more. And so it's just kind of like a pre-decision. Whatever happens next, we're still going to be optimistic. We're still going to stay intentional. We're still going to be resilient and resourceful. We're going to pull together, not let this tear us apart. And I think disruption is something y'all have, in a way, prepared for. Is that a fair assessment?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. We've always been a flexible church who was willing to change and refuse to get stuck in our old ways just because we don't do this. Well, that's just the way we do it. You know, we constantly work on refining who we are as a church and as a team, and being flexible to do something new and try something new. And I think part of that, and this would be a whole rabbit trail to go down, but just to say, part of that is just not making mistake and failure such a big deal. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay if it didn't work out, you move on. I heard at this is just hearsay, but at Google, if somebody launches a product line or something new and it fails, they throw them a party, because their culture, to foster innovation, they celebrate, hey, you tried, it didn't work out, but instead of making it a funeral, we're going to make it a party, and we celebrate that you took a chance. And hey, we thought that was a cool product. It was a great idea. Didn't work out. We're going to learn a lesson and we're going to move forward, you know? And so I think there has to be a little bit of that attitude in our cultures of our teams or in our own lives.
I love that, man. That's so good. And props to your leadership. I mean, your leaders are just the epitome of visionary. And so I would say their default is future focused to begin with.
Totally.
And so if you have a past present paradigm, disruption is going to really threaten your nostalgic, sentimental, you know, safety, or your established view. And if you're more future focused, disruption is like an accelerator to whatever dream, vision, mission that you've been on. You're like, hey, this is like Mario Brothers. We're going to be leveling up. We're like going to the next level with this. This is our opportunity to, to really lean forward. So
Totally.
that's cool.
What I would say there too, just one other key, and then we can go wherever you want or do questions and answers. But just another thought that just works really well with that is we made a decision, COVID in 2020, all the above. Like you said, we actually expanded our campus instead of shrinking. We expanded our live stream. We kind of dug deeper. But one of the decisions I remember us intentionally making is it kind of showed us how shaky everything was. I mean, every prediction we made, us and everybody else, anybody who thinks they predicted where we would be in September 2021 is lying. Nobody knew we'd be exactly in this place. They probably predicted something a whole lot worse or a whole lot better, but nobody predicted this continued awkward in between state in September 2021. But I mean, every prediction we had was wrong. But I just remember at one point saying, who's here, whether we have 4 services or 0 services and we're online only. Who's here, whether the chairs are 6 feet apart or whether the room's jam-packed or whether it's the smallest service, whether we grow, whether we shrink, whether whatever, is our leaders. Our leaders are the consistent piece. Let's invest in our leaders, because a leader who's a good leader, you put them over your youth ministry, they're going to thrive a youth ministry. You put them over the volunteers, they're going to thrive your volunteers. You put them over a Bible study, they're going to thrive, right? They're the consistent piece. Whatever you invested in them is going to continue paying dividends, paying fruit. You put them somewhere else. And I don't mean, obviously, we invest in people because we love them and we appreciate them and we value people. We do things from a genuine heart. As a church, obviously, we don't run things purely as a business, but for your broad audience here, I'm kind of phrasing it with a business edge or a broadly organizational edge. But how I would apply that to an individual for their personal life. Okay, maybe you're going through a job transition. Maybe you're going through a disruption. Maybe you have a kid coming, like I had my example of having a child. Maybe you have a disruption, you're moving to a new place. Okay. One thing about the future is you're going to be there.
So
something
good.
You can always invest in.
That's
is
so
yourself.
good.
And you want to lean in and so part of intentional, one of the most intentional yet flexible things you can do is invest in yourself, invest in your skills, honestly, invest in your virtues. You invest in the virtues and becoming someone. So it's not just about what you do, it's about who you are. I think that's really the behind the scenes of what I'm saying. It's not just about becoming someone who's really good at running. If your purpose is you want to be healthy, it's not just about, oh, I'm really good at running. It's about I'm a healthy person. I'm an exerciser. And if I end up stuck in a hotel room somewhere where it's unsafe to go outside, I'm going to exercise in my hotel room because I'm a healthy person who exercises. Right. And so I found that real quickly because I tricked myself into exercising by getting into rock climbing. And then when we had our kid and I went through 6 months of disruption, I wasn't exercising because I didn't know how to exercise. I was really good at going to the rock climbing gym and climbing. Right. Now I go to the gym, I ride my bike. I've multiplied the kind of expressions of exercise in my life, and I'm still working on that. Right. And so I think you invest in yourself and traits that are going to be consistent, that are in your character, they're in the makeup of who you are. And so that kind of goes into, you've probably talked about it before. I know something we talk about. You set a goal, you accomplish a goal, great. You build a habit, it actually is part of your character that will be there for you in every season of life to come. And so I've heard the example of, when does a soldier become brave? A soldier who takes a death-defying act of bravery on the battlefield, that didn't just happen in a moment. There was years of character building and very boring, mundane, simple decisions that person made every day, day in, day out, to not cheat, to care for someone other than themselves, to finish a book they started. These very basic things created a character and a person who would dive on a grenade to save their brothers. A coward would not do that. And the difference between a coward and a brave, courageous person isn't just a split decision moment. It is the result of a lifetime of small decisions, of habits that build a character in a person. And so that's one of my things I'd say. We're talking about disruption. Disrupt with a focus on building a character and being a person that can be flexible, be intentionally build a character of someone that whatever the outside disruptions life brings, you've got something that's going to go with you. Does that make sense? Hope I was able to say that right. I tried to spit that out quick.
I think you gave a snapshot of prepare to go there.
Really totally.
One of the things I say is I don't want to just rise to the occasion because I really don't know what I'm going to do in the moment, but I would rather fall back on my preparation. And that's something that you've been putting into practice for a long time. We're going to move into just responding to questions. This is Future Friday. We got some future friends on right now. I see Joshua and Sarah Joy and others. I want y'all to say hi in the chat and go ahead and drop your questions for Chris and I, and we'll just have fun going through them. But until they come in, I want to just start asking.
Well, you put some on Instagram too, right?
Yeah, exactly. And Sarah Joy, if you want to type in the questions just so we can see them, because I'm using my phone right now.
Gotcha. Yeah.
But I want to ask you a question, which I'll try to make it succinct. Generally speaking, I think most people consider disruption as reactive. It's something changed, something's happening. Oh my goodness, I have to catch up, or I have to get kind of oriented to what's happening now. How did you and your team switch from reactive to proactive so quickly?
So I'll continue to be honest. I think part of it is learning by mistakes. We probably made some mistakes out the gate. But I think part of it, instead of just getting down on it and just saying, oh man, I wish we wouldn't have done that or whatever. And like I said, I think one of those mistakes was a mistake everyone in the world and all the experts made too, which was a complete inability to predict the future, yet thinking we could. And so at some point in there, it took just a little bit out the gate there. We just realized, hey, you know what? We realized our own limitations. Maybe that's a good way of putting it in principle. We realized our own limitations. And so we were kind of humble enough, catch ourselves. What did you say earlier about catch your own deception? And then that let that prompt you into not settling, but being motivated and saying, okay. And then probably it just ties into what I was just saying about saying, okay, we can't control all of this, but what can we control? What do we have? And to get intentional and to then kind of make a battle plan, And I think in the context of a team, every voice was valued. It was never just one person making a decision or two people making a decision. We have a high value that we hear everybody's thoughts. There's wisdom in a multitude of counsel, the proverb says. And, so as a team, and I think that's just another part of it too. I think we were on the phone a lot, and you and I were talking constantly. We were assessing. We were not determined to do it alone. We don't have some sort of illusion of grandeur that we're the wisest people in the world, but we're just collecting wisdom, so that's probably part of it too.
Man, that's so good. Okay, I'm seeing some questions come through. Sarah Joy is grabbing them from Instagram and then putting them up. The first one is a little more practical or individual, I would say. How do you get out of a rut? Man, it's time you've identified, maybe you've plateaued somewhere and you need to disrupt yourself. What are some things that we can do to actually just get out of the rut?
Yeah, totally. First of all, commend anybody who would even ask the question because, the first thing is just recognize it intentionally. You put a spotlight on it. That's like, there's some old infomercial or something that said, knowledge is half the battle. And so just to have that intentionality tells you're halfway there. You're halfway out of the rut just by recognizing a problem as a problem and desiring to get rid of it. So speaking personally, as a Christian, I go pray. I need to spend a lot of time in prayer. It's how I kind of find my center, kind of line up my compass, get my barometer tuned in life. So I spend time in prayer. I'm also an introvert, so it helps me if I realize like, hey, maybe I'm in a rut here because I tend to notice around the holidays, I'll find myself in some more ruddy type scenarios or mentalities because I've just like, it's day after day of 2 social events a day. and I'm just tired and I haven't refilled back up. And so as an introvert, it's like spend a day alone, spend half a day alone, that sort of thing. So I guess the takeaway from that, that's how I would do it, would just be like, know thyself, right? Know yourself. Maybe you're an extrovert and maybe you get in a rut and you know you're in a rut because you start self-isolating and you aren't going around and being around your friends. And your solution would be to call up and expose yourself and go be with those people that you know are inspiring to you and lift you. Or maybe you're an artist and you need to paint or whatever it is. But I think maybe the succinct key is just know yourself, be intentional to observe yourself, examine yourself, know how you work, and have a go-to answer before you're in the rut of knowing how to get out of that rut.
Man, boom. That was it right there at the end too. What I would say to that is, generally speaking, we get into ruts when we lose track of what we're doing. We kind of mentally tap out. And so the way you're going to get out of the rut is by doing the opposite of what got you in the rut.
Sure.
And so you've got to, instead of disengaging mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever, you've got to re-engage personally, mentally, emotionally, relationally, whatever. And so realize that this is going to take some focused, concerted effort for a while to get this thing back on track. And so you're kind of throttling down in some other areas of progress in order to reallocate more energy, more time into this other area. And once you can reintegrate it back into, your own personal momentum, then you can make that fresh commitment. Okay, I'm going to practice multifaceted focus. I'm not going to, let this thing get away from me. I'm going to slow down so I can keep moving, fast.
Totally.
And I heard a quote that slow is smooth, smooth is fast. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And so the point is, like, most of the time we can't sustain our own momentum because we're not pacing ourselves and we're not taking those breaks. And so that's what we actually that was the medicine, but it could have actually been preventative too. So
wow, that's a great thing to remember. So if you probably have to first slow down so it can smooth out, and in the long term you'll be a lot faster. That's great.
Very cool. Okay, I got another question, and I encourage you, go ahead and drop a question, because this is all about Future Friday. We want to help you keep your future on the front burner. Kind of the whole topic has been on disrupting yourself so you can, leverage change for the better. If you want to talk about self-leadership or you want to talk about teams, you're listening to a brilliant team strategist. We didn't brag on him enough yet, but he's got a lot of leadership gold. So feel free to pull it out of him. But another question is, I think this one's pretty interesting. Sarah Joy got this from my Instagram. How do you know when you need a new job or just new motivation for that job? Whenever you're like disrupting yourself, you're like, man, my job isn't going great. I need to disrupt it. How do you like moderate whether you go to the extreme disruption and you do like a new job, or if you just need it's kind of what you were talking about, inside disruption versus outside disruption. How would you approach that, man?
Yeah, so it's hard for me because the first thing I'd want to know is all the details. Such a personal question, right? But just with that said, as a caveat, I think one of the main things like that I would probably more so, aside from the obvious things, an abusive boss and an immoral environment. There's some obvious major red flags, right? But if that wasn't there, I would lean towards stick with the job. Find a new motivation. That would be my kind of lean. The reason I say that is exactly what we talked about earlier. And that is, if this job is going to teach you how to dig deep and find some resilience, that's worth more than a paycheck. If this thing builds the character of resilience, perseverance, problem solving, these sort of things are invaluable to you. And so I think, frankly, come on, I got my axe hat on here. As modern day people in our world, we've gotten really soft and we value comfort and easiness way too high. And there's something to be said for intentionally putting ourselves in situations that are challenging, that are out of our comfort zone. I mean, when you go to, I did football in junior high, I did cross country in junior high. We'd get up at the morning and you'd run until you threw up. There was nothing comfortable about it. But you go to football and you'd hurt yourself on purpose. But what do we call this? We call this character building. We call this good parenting, right? Because you're teaching children what real life is and you're teaching them life skills that they need. And so I'd say, man, if that job's teaching you resilience, you go find yourself a job. And I've spoke to people, I think they're so awesome because they got a job that pays them a little bit of money. They're not making enough money where their money's going to make money or something. It's not just like, they're just doing a little bit better than minimum wage, enough to be comfortable. It's like young people, and they're so proud of their easy job. They can just sit there and play video games or look at their phone all day. And I'm like, man, I get that that's comfortable. I get that that's easy. But if you're being future focused, you might need to disrupt that a little bit. You know, it's one thing if you're telling me, hey, I got an easy job where I'm making money and I'm sitting there and I'm learning a new language, or I'm learning about stock trading and investing. But you're just sitting there wasting time laughing about how easy you've got it. I don't know what type of character that's built. I don't know if that's going to work out for you in the long run, especially as a young person. You know, it's one thing if you're 75 and you got that deal worked out, then maybe you go with that. But as a young person, I would say, man, dig deep, learn how to find resilience, learn some consistency, some patience. And yeah, I think that's going to pay you off in the long run.
That's so good, man. I think that was convicting a few people. I saw them jump off the stream.
Sorry.
Here. That is so good. No, I'm joking. They're jumping on.
What would you say? I mean, there's different ways of looking at it.
I'd say the same.
If it was just like, I don't know, my feet get sore, it's like, dig deep, man. Learn how to do it. It's going to pay you dividends in your future.
Yeah, I would say motivation is an inside job, and if you can't handle the boss you have now, it's going to be hard for you to be your own boss later. And so you've got to level up, boss up, and don't leave because you're a failure or frustrated. Leave because you're a success, and leave because you finished something, and you can't really launch until you've done that. And so
totally. It's a great way of putting it.
Unfortunately, it's just a waiting game. My mentor told me just this week, he said, you never leave something, you're launching towards something. So it's not about what you're trying to get away from or escaping. It's about where you have that sense of calling to go to next. And so just living with that future focused mindset instead of, offense in general is a past present paradigm, you know? So don't live in the past, move forward, be future focused. Super good.
Totally. And I'll just say, I commend the instinct there. The instinct is right. You don't want to live in a place day in, day out that you're shriveling. You want to be somewhere you're thriving. And so ultimately talk to some trusted friends, have mentors in your life, explain the situation and contemplate it with them.
And even you can make a battle plan for transition, for, leaving things better than you found it. This is not a lifetime contract by any means. This is
totally
knowing the season you're in, being a finisher, following through, picking up those life skills along the way. That's super good. Chris, You got time for one or two more questions?
Absolutely. Yeah, of course.
Okay. Sarah Joy is grabbing them. Thank you, Sarah. And anybody else, drop in your questions right now. How do you get people on board for change that you want to make? So this is good. This is like more of a team-based conversation. We're talking about disrupting ourselves. Now we're talking about disrupting the team. Y'all lead and live so fast-paced already as it is. How do you keep everybody revved up for the next hill?
Totally. First of all, You got to ask the tough questions. You got to ask the honest questions. Are you excited about it? If you're not excited about it, nobody's gonna be excited about it. Are you willing to be a part of it and participate in it? You know, are you asking? Don't ask your people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. That's a first one. You know, and so I would just say the first tough question is this a genuine the shift you're making? Are you trying to get people to do something for you, or are you trying to get buy-in to make a shift with you? So that's the first question.
So good.
And if it's just you trying to like, oh man, we need to make more money, so I'm gonna hustle my team to make more money in these certain ways, but I'm gonna do the same thing I've been doing. You know, that's probably that wouldn't be a leadership tactic I would recommend. But then secondly, I would just say, you know, so I guess you could sum that up as lead by example. Make sure you're leading by example. And then another one would just be invest the time it takes to talk to people. I would say, depending on your team size, you know, if you're leading a small group of people and you're talking about a big change, you don't want people to feel like commodities. So if you got 4 people on your team, have 4 coffee dates or 2 coffee dates with 2 each, and invest some time. Be an open book. Let them ask questions. Explain the situation right. And if you just tell people what to do, they're going to feel like a commodity, and nobody's going to work hard for something they don't believe in. Right. So if you sit down and you let your passion kind of be contagious through osmosis and through that quality time, people are gonna jump on board so much easier than just like kind of telling people something that's going to change. And they don't know, man. You're probably motivated to do this disruption in your team because you read this book and you read 12 chapters. And you put 12 hours of your life, and then there was a documentary, and then you saw a sign in your dream, and then something else happened, and you saw a quote from Gandhi, and you're like, oh, you're charged up. And then like you can't expect people to get to that place in just 5 minutes. You know what I mean? And so invest time. And then I would say, if you have a big team specifically, know your influencers and invest the time of the influencers. And then exactly what I'm saying. You got to find those influencers. You got to spend time with them, and then it's like it's contagious passion. And if you can get the influencers, if you invest the time with them, it's like kicking a domino, and then it'll just kind of go down the line. But if your influencers feel left out, you know, you're the CEO of a company, and your managers didn't feel like they have any idea why we're disrupting our business this much. There's no chance. Your lower level people are not going to be passionate about it because they can tell their manager doesn't even understand and is skeptical of your decision. So yeah, I would say invest the time and make sure it's real and authentic, and you're going to be able to lead by example in the shifts.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. And I have literally seen Chris and his team and their community go for it. I mean, I think it's crazy. We've got, you know, the 20-year anniversary of 9/11, which was very disruptive. Nobody wanted that, you know,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. And yet we're still feeling the effects of that.
Totally.
So the thing I would add to that, and before I get into my input here, Wendy is on, who just literally made my day.
Hey, what's up, Wendy?
Thank you, Wendy. So kind. Amazing leader. So what I would say, and I'll just say we're going to be landing the plane pretty soon after this. So anybody, okay, good. Joshua's got a question. We'll hit that one right after this. But the reason I brought up the painful memory of 9/11 is to prove that disruption is long-term. Disruption is long-term in nature. And your team has to believe that this is not an interruption, but it's actually a legitimate disruption. Here you are, you're talking about changing the game, you're talking about going a new direction, you're talking about an interruption is a blip, and it'll pause the current direction for a time, but then you always go back to normal. You'll always get back to normal. That's an interruption. hey, we stopped this for a while, but we'll get back to it because there was an interruption. Disruption is not interruption. Disruption says we're not going back to normal. We're doing
Yeah.
new normal. This is the new normal. And what I found is that your team wants to know, hey, is this an interruption? Are we just going to go back to the way things were? Are you just like talking big? Are you just excited about this, but then you'll be excited about that later? Or are you really focused on a long-term disruption? Are you really committed to the ripple effect that Chris was talking about, working with the core team, the leaders, getting buy-in, and then letting that go further out. And so disruption is not just a weekend launch. Disruption is the whole journey. It's the whole campaign. And you're like, how long, your kid, that disruption never ends. You experience disruption in a moment, but it became your new normal. And so that's what this has to be. You have to have that kind of commitment. And if you're taking on disruption like that, you're going to be more choice. You're going to be more selective. You're going to be more intentional. And you're going to say, hey, we only get a few really good chances to make this work, to make this stick. So we can't just be like, blowing everything up and having fun because we're calling ourselves disruptive now. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I love the way you're saying that. If I were to borrow the analogy of like the child interruption, I feel like the way I think this analogy works is like, don't be excited about having a baby. Having a cute baby is really, oh, I'm so excited, depending on the person, so excited about having the cute little baby. You're birthing a life. You're birthing an adult. Okay. That person's going to spend 90% of their life as a grown person. Right. And so that baby season's real short. That honeymoon, that wedding is really short. That marriage is going to last a lifetime. That new campus launch. Oh, it's going to be such a fun campus launch. It's going to be so exciting. Yeah. Then for the rest of the years to come, it is a week in, week out responsibility you've now committed yourself to. And so you got to be realistic with past the excitement of the big disruptive, exciting moment where you shift it and you do the countdown and the confetti launches, and you better be committed to what comes after that. You better be committed to what comes 3 years after that, count the cost.
That's it, man. That's it. Yeah. Okay. My friend Joshua has a great question. He's also in ministry. And so he's asking, how do you go about creating a culture that celebrates your team when they're trying to disrupt their lives or ministry for the better? What are some practical things that y'all have found are working? Just a culture of celebration, like you were talking about with, I think it was Google. Is that what you mentioned? That if throw a party for trying something new, what are some things that we could do for our teams?
Yeah. Again, great instinct. You're halfway there just by that, to celebrate people, that you're just not clueless and taking people for granted. People know when you take them for granted, and they know when they're appreciated. And so just to have, again, it's hard. Again, I got to apologize. In our world, in our context, everything comes out of a place of authenticity and genuineness. And the good thing about those character traits and those leadership aspects is that they're real and people know when they're real. So we don't got to put it on. If you're genuinely celebrating someone, that's just going to happen. That's just going to come out because you're actually celebrating them. They're going to know it. So of course, you could appeal to love languages, words of affirmation, quality time, celebrate them, public praise, all these sort of things. But I would say the setup for the win there is what we mentioned with Google earlier. If you weren't on, we mentioned the hearsay is that at Google, the company, if you do a product launch and you fail, they celebrate you and throw a party. And that is to sustain and foster a culture that failure is not the end of the world. We don't throw a funeral for your product. We throw a party for you, and we celebrate that you went out there and you took a chance. So I think part of it, the reactive aspect, Joshua, I would say, is just if you have a heart to celebrate them and honor them, just do it. Just let it be honest. Let it be genuine. Celebrate them. Praise them. That's great. But to foster a culture where people are actually going to do that and you'll have something to celebrate, you have to, make sure making a mistake and trying and then failing, because we're humans and we're imperfect. And if you're going to get better, sometimes you got to fail 100 times before you get it right. Nobody picks up chopsticks and just does it right the first time. If you want to learn how to use chopsticks, you're going to drop the sticks a few times. You're just going to, that's part of, like, I don't know where this became such a big deal. And I think one other maybe aspect of that and how to make sure it's not such a big deal would be to foster an environment where people know the lanes and know where it's appropriate to try and maybe make a mistake, and that's going to be celebrated, and it's not the end of the world. And then there is situations, let's be realistic, there's situations and places where that's less okay, or that's maybe sometimes where that's not okay. And so if you can help define those lanes for your people, your leaders, your teams, they'll know. And so maybe in my culture, it's like, hey, okay, so my culture of like the church and Bible teaching, it's like, hey, trying out your new theology, doctrine, revelation with a microphone in your hand on live stream on Sunday morning on the stage is not an appropriate time for that to try that one out. And so if you want to try out your new biblical insight, have a talk with our pastors in an office, and we're going to encourage you and be inspired by going for it. And if you're really far off, that'll be a very appropriate place to maybe bring a counterpoint, right? And so if you define those lanes, I think that would really help. I think maybe here's an analogy I heard someone else say, and a comparable concept is let people know what is your research and development and what is your final product. So like if you work for a computer company, research and development is literally the place where you are researching and developing new innovative things. And that means you are going to miss it. You're going to fail. You're going to mess up because you're innovating. That's what you're doing. When you go to the assembly line to package a final product out and send it to your customers, that is where it is supposed to be perfect. That is where there's not supposed to be a single mistake. Any defect is wrong. A 4-star review is not acceptable. We want a 5-star review. That's a totally different mentality. So if people think that they are operating in a research and development environment because you told them that making a mistake's not a big deal, but they accidentally took that in the concept of in your application, your world, where this would be, no, this is more of a final product kind of environment where now we're going for no mistakes. This is where we don't do mistakes. And so I think if you can define those zones, that would help bring freedom and confidence. Does that make sense? I hope that
it does. I do want to ask. Well. I want to ask a clarifying question just to apply some resolving power here. On one side, I'm hearing you say that you celebrate people taking initiative, you celebrate R&D, but then on the other side, you say, honestly, we just have a culture of relationships and authenticity, and so we don't acknowledge, we kind of make it a no pressure environment as well. Is it good to do we make a big deal about, hey, you failed, great job, like the Disney, what is it, Meet the Robinsons, hey, you failed, keep moving forward? Or is it, hey, it's okay, it won't get noticed, therefore it won't get punished because we're all just staying relational here?
Yeah, totally. I think, maybe I should clarify. When I was appealing to the authentic and genuine, I'm talking about just the very literal answer to his question about how do you, celebrate your team when they have endeavors. And so I'm just saying, if you genuinely honor and love your people and you celebrate them, then that's just naturally going to come out. As far as celebrating failures, that's something that I'm just using an example that I've heard that Google does that's always been an inspiration to us. But I would say, we don't have any formal process. That's not something we do in my world or in our church. We've never thrown a party for a mistake so far as I can think. But there's been times that we've acknowledged that people have tried something or didn't work or whatever. And we just have that culture of no big deal. And we honor people's heart and their intention. And I think people know that they have, the ability to be creative and innovative and stuff. And I think if we're going to be super realistic, a lot of it gets stopped in the idea phase. I think that's maybe one other aspect. It's like you bring an idea and then like maybe as a team, we decide that idea is not going to work, but we're not like, oh man, you're like what a terrible idea. I mean, we probably have a bunch of terrible ideas mentioned at every staff meeting we have, but we have a culture where you can throw out your idea and it's not a big deal if it's not like the idea that takes the day or whatever. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. This has been super good, man. I'm going to wrap up these questions here just with some closing comments, but I really appreciate you coming on and adding value.
Yeah, man. It's been fun.
It's so good. How would you kind of summarize? What are some takeaways? Give us some homework, man. How do we actually, embrace change, lead with disruption, create a culture of innovation around our teams? What are some, simple takeaways?
Yeah, simple takeaway. I think for your whole program, but certainly for today, a guiding principle word for all of this is intentionality. Take the time to count the costs, examine yourself, take some time, some intentional time. You might have to be intentional about finding intentional time. You might literally schedule it in your calendar or whatever, and examine your life, your motivation, where you're at, your goals, your habits, your calendar, your trajectory. And then I would say specifically for this show, look at for that eye of that. Okay, what am I investing in as far as intentionality and flexibility? Just going back to some of the core things we talked about. Thank you, Joshua. I see that. He says it makes perfect sense. I was hoping that made sense. I appreciate that. But yeah, so you look at yourself and say, where am I investing? I'm investing tokens in my life. I'm investing here. I'm investing this. And what part of these, if my job changed, if I moved to a different city, if my career path moved, if my ministry shifted, which of these are going with me and which of these are here? And where I'm at in life, what am I getting out of this? What is this building? And so just take an intentional examination and think about that. What is long-term? What's your friends and those kind of things that in your heart are lifelong things. Of course, there's almost nothing more lifelong than who you are as a person, your character, and what is, how are you investing in that? And how can that serve you in the days to come, kind of whatever life may bring. And then if you find areas in your life where there's deficits, that's where you bring the intentional disruption. And you say, you know what, this inability to wake up at a proper time is got to go. That's not going to work. If disruption came tomorrow and I had to start waking up at 6 a.m., I am completely enabled to do that. So you know what? Disrupt it yourself right now. It'll be a lot better if you disrupt it instead of letting life disrupt it for you. Yeah,
that is so good. That's a whole new angle on this whole conversation, which is great. Hey, I was bragging on you yesterday. I don't know if you got to hear it yet, but I was talking about how I was so encouraged and grateful that our friendship has, gone through so many seasons of life, and
totally
that doesn't always happen. And obviously it's been a God thing, but we were hanging out as kids and then serving together, during summer camps and all that, and just dreaming together. And I think our friendship has kind of always been more future focused, and maybe future present based than past present based. But then I got to see, you and your wife meet, date.
You introduced us, man. You introduced us. That's, what can you say?
And then, you and Stephanie were so just helpful and pivotal, in my relationship with my wife, Sarah Joy. And so just to kind of go through all of these seasons, how do you think our friendship as brothers has been able to kind of stand the test of time? Because I was mentioning how just recently you kind of disrupted my schedule. You pulled me, kind of brought me to your side of town and offered coffee, and you just sat me down and you said, I want to just stay up to date with you, and you were really intentional and you very thorough about understanding plot points, in my own story, and kind of making sure that you didn't assume that you were up to speed, even though we had a lot of friendship and history already. What would you say to people who want to add futurability to their key relationships, whether it's friends, family, team members? I just think you've done so great at that. How do you add that futurability, and how do you leverage disruption to, I don't know, just give your friendships more of a future.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, that's great. And I don't even, the funny thing is I don't even know which coffee you're referring to, because I think
That's the key.
there's been a few intentional
That's
coffees,
a key right there, guys.
that there's a lesson in that, I suppose. There's been more than I can remember or pinpoint. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm going to sound like a parrot here, and I need to get a thesaurus out and find more words that mean the same thing as intentionality. So it sounds like I'm saying something new. But really, it's the tried and true thing, intentionality. So what do I mean? So let's apply that. What do I mean? That means that those coffees were intentional. But that means that even before that, there was an intentionality that I know who my people are. Like I know I can pull up a phone list right now on my phone of just they literally intentionally, there's some social to-dos. Basically, there's some people in my life that I need to call up, I need to connect with, and I'm not necessarily saying they're going to be my friend for my lifetime, but I know there's more there than is active. So I literally have it organized, and these are people that I'm going to be texting or calling in the near future, and I'm going to be going to coffee, or I'm going to just keep up with them, right? And so and then as far as with you, it's like there was somewhere in that process where I felt like you were someone God put in my life that was there in a extremely long-term, lifelong kind of way. And so it wasn't really up to me to let that slip or not, I mean, it was up to me to let that slip or not. It wasn't up to me if it was valuable or worth it. It just was something I knew in life. And I think everybody, we're people of faith. And so we feel like we get our orders from the Lord, but everybody has to be true to what's in their heart, and to know, like, what is the difference between something you feel like, man, I was put on this world for this. This is a calling, and this is just kind of incidental. And I don't owe incidental things as much intentionality. But whatever it is that you feel like that God ordained for your life, I mean, that's top tier priority. And everybody needs to know, often in life, the highest priority, most important things are not the most urgent.
Yeah.
Urgent is like, whatever. There's urgent things pressing you all the time, and you just have to attend to them. And those are the things that often distract you from those super important goals and dreams and relationships that just aren't urgent. They're quiet, but man, they pay off more than anything. So maybe one final example, and this would have been one of those coffees, but I had heard this concept, and I don't know if this is just something I've heard, or maybe this is something other people heard, but this concept of oftentimes the best man or maid of honor at your wedding becomes the end of a relationship. It's some sort of ironic thing. I don't totally under some interesting sociological thing, but I've heard of many people this has happened to. Whoever it is that you put up there as your best man or your closest person, when the wedding comes, you go on that honeymoon, it's the end of a relationship, and people totally fall out of touch with their best man. I knew that going into when I got married. And so for context, Peter was my best man at my wedding. I already knew that. I was tracking. I wasn't going to let that slip. So you were there the night before my wedding. You spent the night at my apartment before the wedding, right? I mean, you were there to the end. And for whatever, we've never even talked about this, but after I got married, I think life just is busy. Somewhere in there, I'm like, boom, it dawned on me how long it had been since we talked. And there was a season there where I think our relationship kind of slowed down. And there, it was like, but I had to intentionally notice, track, and counteract that momentum to stay in a friendship with you. Because even though I knew it was a possibility, it was amazing how I just, for whatever natural, weird sociological reasons, it started happening. And so there was times where I had to call you up, and I remember we'd leave each other like 5-minute voice message or something, because it was just like, you're just leaving a stake in the ground of this relationship or this friendship matters to me. So I'm going to do what it takes. So whether it's having a note on your phone or leaving a 5-minute voice message, or just being relentless with not going with the flow and with some natural momentum, but honoring something that's important but not urgent in your life, it takes intentionality.
Yeah, and you initiated, which was so cool. And the reason I bring this up is not to brag on, this friendship. This friendship just, is honoring God. But the reason I bring this up is when you go through disruption, I don't know, like a pandemic, what normally like erodes? It's these relationships. Everybody's kind of hunkering down. They're trying to react. They're trying to hold the ground that they have. And that's when we need to be more aware of the people that are in our lives and, the trajectory that we're going down. And we really do need to be our brother's keeper, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And yeah. I was floored. I mean, I know one of your, I don't know how to describe it, but one of your foundational insights was, Matthew 7, Lord, Lord, we did all these things in your name. And he's going to say, I don't know you. And it's not because they didn't have a relationship at all. It's because those people started a relationship that they couldn't sustain. And there was so much erosion over time that they didn't update their relationship. They didn't update their identity in order to go the distance. And so being willing to disrupt seasons of your life, notice when a season has changed, and then reinvest in those relationships when new seasons have arrived. For instance, I told the example yesterday how when Sarah Joy and I got married, when we came back from that honeymoon, we were intentional about visiting my parents on Monday nights. Every week, we did Monday nights for like 9 months, and maybe longer, every Monday night. And that's a drive, that's like almost an hour drive. And we went and we took that time because I didn't want, there was a few reasons, but one main reason is I just realized that something had shifted and I wanted to update that relationship. And so I didn't want my parents just thinking it'll be the same. It is the same. Obviously they understand leaving Cleve, which was a blessing, but to actually invest in the new season, that's why whenever Chris and Stephanie had, their amazing rock climbing kid, Noah, Francis, you're amazing. I don't know what time it is over there, bro. Oh my goodness. But when they had their amazing rock climbing kid, Noah, we wanted to be a part of that part of their story. Yeah, we didn't want to just high five them digitally. We actually wanted to go third dimension and put, some footprints in the soil of that season. And a lot of times we don't do that because we have the choice, we have the chance, but we don't take it. And so disrupting your future and disrupting your relationships may look like driving out there and making a moment and actually updating the mental picture that people have of you. Because I wanted to use language, and that was something I was going to say with Joshua, is look at your language and see what your language celebrates. If you talk a lot about, well, they've been so faithful, that could almost be code for don't mess up. Do the same thing. Be predictable. But if you say, man, they've been really fruitful in ministry, they've taken initiative, they've, it's not like you have to say we have a culture of disruption, even though I believe Jesus Christ was literally the most disruptive person on planet Earth. And that's for another conversation. But, you don't have to make that a banner statement. It's like Chris was saying, the culture and the character that you're building. And so what I would do if you want to celebrate and, lead people into this is realize that there are seasons. Give people seasons. Give them clear seasons. Now, I was listening to Francis's team preaching, and they said, seasons inside of you. Understand the story that you're in. Understand the seasons inside you. A lot of people are procrastinating seasons that are pent up inside them. They're not willing to take initiative and do the work to actually, step into that thing, which I thought was amazing. But give people seasons, and it could be practical calendar timelines like, hey, we're going through quarter 3 right now. We're going through quarter 4 right now. And then you make these coaching checkpoints every 90 days or every 30 days, and you're being intentional about having conversations and then saying, hey, what are you trying? Where are you flying? Where are you drowning? Let's, talk about your growth, talk about your progress, and just kind of stair stepping with people in those 90 days or 30 days. You're saying, wow, look at what's changed, look at what's different, look at the differences, and kind of celebrating that way. So, Chris, it wouldn't be right if we didn't make a few fun, I don't know, predictions, projections. Where do you think the next disruptions are going to be? I mean, you can talk about church world, you could talk about culture, life. What do you think are going to be some of the disruptions of the future? 2022 is coming up, in the next 2 or 5 years. What do you think are going to be some really disruptive trends, maybe?
Man, can I let you go first? Well, I think about that very important question, because my first thing out the gate, and I just cards on the table, I have, and this is totally negative energy for Future Fridays, so forgive me, but it's just, I've kind of gone on hiatus of trying to predict the future, at least in this global scale. I could talk about my future or whatever, but on the global scale, I'm so traumatized by bad predictions of the future that I kind of turned my brain off to that. But I think I've got a few, if I could just dig down inside. So maybe you say something you're thinking and
Sure.
see if it sparks something for me.
I don't, I make it pretty clear. We're not here to predict. We're here to prepare. And there's a big difference between making predictions and making preparations. And I think being proactive and intuitive, and that's the cool thing about disruption. There's a quote by an economist named William Gibbons, and he says, the future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. The future is already here. It's just not evenly distributed. And so where there are signs of disruption, a lot of people are in a reactive mindset and they're trying to get back to normal or whatever, but that's actually an opportunity to launch ahead and, to move forward and
Totally.
And be proactive. So I think that one of the disruptions that we're getting ready for is what I've been referring to as a volunteer movement. I'm really excited about kind of an empowered people movement. I think more and more people are realizing that knowledge is accessible. Trades are portable. They're not so fixed in where they work and how they work, where they live, how they live. So I really believe a lot of people are going to be stepping up and they're going to be stepping out in I just see a Good Samaritan movement that's going to be growing at a grassroots level. And I think more and more people are going to feel less helpless, and they're actually going to develop a life skill of disruption. They're going to say, oh yeah, we got initiated with 2020. And now as we go deeper into the 2020s, they're going to be much more grounded. They're going to be much more networked, and they're going to be able to level up as they deal with new challenges. Obviously, this is all about getting to our heart, and getting to the soul of our cities and our nations. But for people, for Jesus people, for sure, and then hopefully for future focused people, we're actually going to be developing the skill set so that way the next time a disruption happens, we're not on our heels. We're actually heading in. We're going to be helpful, kind of like the Cajun Navy. When they've been through so many storms and so many hurricanes that whenever they hear about it, like I remember when Harvey hit, they came to help us. I was so blown away by that. And I'm expecting and hopeful that we're going to see more people being on the initiative when it comes to that.
Totally. I would say maybe one big thing as a very broad stroke is I just think change is going to come quicker than ever. I think in the past, the world's obviously, and that's not really that revolutionary of a thing. Changes come quickly, but it tends to come in big swings and then slow down in between. So like the iPhone came out in 2009 and like smartphones just took over so quick, but it's hard to think of something that's been as revolutionary as the iPhone since then. Right. And the advent of the internet became a huge thing. And maybe Internet of Things is a little bit of a game changer, but I think the pandemic of 2020 and everything that happened since then has caused even entire corporations to adjust their policies, their procedures, their plans, the whole world, governments, individuals, small businesses have had to learn how to implement rapid change. Therefore, it will have the long-term effect of making rapid change possible. And so that cuts both ways, but it certainly speaks to what we're talking to today about being able to be flexible, because we may have to be more flexible in the future than we've ever had to be in the past. So I think that's one big thing. It's funny today. This is just a good example. The bottom line is the world has changed forever. This is just something silly I thought of today, but if you see me, I've been sitting in front of this beautiful tapestry I have of Yosemite on my couch in my living room.
Yeah, and I got Yosemite here on.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. And because I have a big window right here and it lets light in. And so when I do Zoom, so I've sat in this chair and done live streams from this spot. It's not really the best spot in the world, but I've done this for a year and a half now because there's been so much of life done on Zoom and on live stream. Well, it's not because I don't have an office in my house. It's because I have an office on my house that I moved into at the end of 2019, and I set up a beautiful office entirely thinking about me sitting in my chair and what I'm going to look at when I'm by myself in my office working. And so it's really beautiful what I'm seeing in front of me. But what a camera would see looking at me and my desk behind me is something I never even thought about. What's behind me on my desk? Who cares? It's the door. It's a blank wall. Who cares? It's not very nice looking. The lighting's not very nice. It's dark and moody, right? If I would have set up an office 9 months later, when all of a sudden I was doing everything on Zoom, I would have flipped everything around. I would have designed an office thinking about what's behind me that everybody's going to see it when I'm at my desk doing a Zoom, doing a live stream. I'd put bright lights in there. I'd have a lights in front of my camera. I'd be in front of the window. I would not care at all what's in front of me, what I see. I'd care what people saw behind me. And that shift will forever be done. Interior designers are going to design offices at businesses, and people are going to design their home offices entirely more prioritizing what's behind them that they would have never saw before, ever thought about before, all because of this shift. And that will permanently be the situation. And I know that's a lighthearted example, but just I love the metaphor in that. The perspective of what you see and what you care about in a moment has shifted forever in such a simple application. And nobody would have predicted that. You know what I mean? And so the world has definitely changed forever. And it's time for us to catch up. It's time for me to go in my office and reorganize it. But I had to kind of notice it and think, I keep having to sit on the couch in the living room. Maybe I should think about my office now. So whenever I do a Zoom meeting, I can just use my normal spot, And I think that's a good metaphor to think about how the future's changed.
I love that, man. That's so good. I think another disruption is home in general. I think just more and more of our life can be home-based. And so we can definitely leverage that in the way we think and lead. But hey, I'm going to ask you real quick about the masterminds that I do. I just finished a future-focused mastermind last Saturday, 1 week ago. It was so much fun. I think you heard a little bit of feedback about that maybe, but you've been in.
Yeah, I did. One of our church members was on it, and I saw our church on Sunday, and she had a great review of it. So it's pretty cool.
And the reason I'm saying this is not to gloat, but to get people excited about the next one. So Sarah Joy and I have already committed. We want to do multiple masterminds. I'll probably keep the same theme, future focused mastermind, just take some of the same content and just reintroduce it to new multiple friends, and just let more and more people get into that conversation. You've been at many in-person masterminds and, you've kind of heard a little bit of feedback. What would you say, for people to expect, or just what kind of encouragement would you give them for their own leadership development?
Yeah, I would just say when I've been a part of these with you, you've done a really good job, and there's a power in that small group setting that's extended. And so part of it is being able to do Q&A with you. And so, of course, you're going to share some really great content and that sort of thing, as you always do. But you tailor it to who's in front of you. Every time I've seen you talk, you tailor to who's in front of you. And so it's different than just being able, like right now, people can ask a Q&A and you can answer. That's wonderful. And that's really great you do that. But you get one question, and you're also going to take a question that someone sends in here, and you're going to want to make sure you're giving an answer that applies to the viewers online, the nameless, faceless people, right? And so to be able to have a sit down with you, that's a good amount of time, that's going to be tailored to your life situation, and be able to ask questions and answers with a more specific context is just beyond powerful. And so I know you give your best possible content, and that alone's worth it. But then when you combine that with the fact that it's tailored to your situation because you're in a small group setting, I mean, come on.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
So I want all of you, every one of you, Joshua and Francis and Wendy and all the others that have been on, I want y'all to make a pre-decision that the next one you're going to make the effort to come. I'd love to hang out with y'all again. I'm hoping to do at least one, maybe a few before the end of this year, because we got to get ready. Okay, I'm going to give my biggest takeaway from today. Are you ready? Here's my biggest takeaway. You need to work on your schedule, and you need, if you want to lead with a disruptive lifestyle that leverages change and leads yourself and takes on the future and develops team culture, here it is. You ready? Make a schedule and schedule space in it. Isn't that counterintuitive? But that's how you live and lead a disruptive life. You're proactively scheduling space, so that way when things change, not if, you will have the margin to think about it, to interact with it, to respond to it. So be proactive about space and guard your lifestyle from getting too cluttered that you can't actually move out when you're called upon. So
totally. Dude, that's awesome.
So good. Thank you so much for, jumping on, and
It's been fun, man. We'll do it again.
I look forward to it, man. Stay awesome. Have an awesome
back.
And I'll finish out with
absolutely. Thanks everybody who chatted and stuff. Been fun.
It was good. All right, bro. I'll see you soon. Man, so good, y'all. I went a little longer because this is a big deal day. Having a future friend on, and if you enjoyed this content, well, first off, go see Chris, and you can find him. I'll put his Instagram and all that in the notes. Chris Needham, just an amazing leader and friend. And that's what I say, every time I'm like, hey, this is a call to action, daily coaching. This is a journey. It doesn't mean that all of these leaders are on every day. It just means that we are, we represent a tribe. And Chris just gave me his handle, so I'm going to add that in. There he is right there, y'all. Go ahead and follow him at Chris_Needham. He's got amazing stuff. Now, a lot of his work and content is actually showing up at Dwelling Place Church, so you can check that out there as well. But he's just amazing. Okay. If this resonates with you, I want you to jump into the email community. Call it Future Friends. And now you kind of got a good taste of what Future Friends do. We hang out, we talk, and we encourage each other. And have fun. Okay, that is it. I have a free fail-proof planning guide waiting on you. You can click on the link in the notes, or you can go to peterbirchfield.com and download it instantly. Just put in your name and email. You can get this for free. It'll help you identify your goals, make sure that they're really robust and ready for the future, so they're not going to get derailed, help you look out and feel more agile, less fragile about what's coming at you. And then it's going to really nail down some good rhythms and routines, so that way you can keep up your personal momentum. It's called the Fail Proof Planning Guide. Go ahead and check it out. We'll be back next week, Monday. We'll be back Monday with a whole new conversation. And I really like Fridays. I like the way this one went. So I'll be working on recruiting some more future friends to jump in to the stream. And your questions really made it fun today. So thank you for that. Stay awesome, everyone. Remember, you're going places, but you got to prepare to go there. So see you soon.